This program has been made possible in part by the following sponsors: David and Mark Goodman, the Vancouver Courier newspaper, Vancouver lawyers Dumoulin Boscovich, policeman goes to York University in Toronto to talk to people there about taking care of themselves in terms of safety. And he makes the mistake of saying something brilliant like, well, you shouldn't dress like a slut because then you could be, victimized. Of course, the student body reacts negatively because it's a fatuous, stupid thing to say. Well, 100 years ago or 40 years ago or even 12 years ago, that local comment might have stayed local. But we live in the new world of social media, and what happened immediately was, first of all, the students, most largely female, but all kinds of students at York, organized what they called the first annual Slut Walk to protest this kind of absurd thinking and speech. Well, within days, Slut Walk went from York University to Boston, to the United Kingdom, and to Australia. And you know what's responsible for that. It's called Facebook. Good evening, everybody. Our guest today is Dr. Raul Pacheco-Vega. He's in the Department of Political Science at UBC and focuses on matters of public policy. But his largest claim to fame, your largest claim to fame, Raul, is that you are Hummingbird 604 on Twitter. Yeah. And you have like 8 gazillion followers.
I do have over 7,500, yes.
Yeah, why? What is it that you're writing about that has brought you 7,000, 7,500 followers?
I think the reason for the popularity of the Hummingbird 604 brand is it's me. It's just me. It just happens to be, this youthful former dancer, I used to actually model before, theater actor, and someone who loves food and travel and so on, and I just love sharing that with my community. So,
but you're also all about public policy.
Yes.
Which is what this show is about.
Yes.
Okay, so the reason I invited you is I want your thoughts on how social media can, if it really does, and I'm starting to believe it really does, affect public policy.
Yes, as you said, my area of specialty is public policy, and mostly within public policy, I have studied the way in which people organize and collaborate.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of research on environmental mobilizations and how NGOs can actually mobilize and put pressure on domestic governments. Now, with social media, that is way easier because mobilizing can take just as easy as a like on a Facebook or a retweet on Twitter. And now you see these massive online movements that arise from just this collaboration.
Yeah, why, Raul? See, I don't, because I'm 10,000 years old, I'm sort of not quite up to that curve. Why does that happen? Why does, Vancouver, not Vegas, is a good example of public policy, an issue where it looked like a slam dunk, didn't it? That here's a casino and all the usual big players have said, oh yes, we're going to do that. And suddenly the thing goes viral. And guess what? Council says no. How does that happen?
I think there's 2 elements to that. And the first element is that the issues are galvanizing people. And social media is an amazing tool for people to relate. Social media has enabled you or me or anybody else to tweet at the Prime Minister of Canada and tell him that he's doing stupid things just by sending @PM Harper on Twitter. And that sort of democratization of the whole political and public policy process is what social media has enabled. And in doing so, what happens is that once you find that key specific issue that can move people's souls, the rest is really easy. The rest is just framing it and communicating it in a way that can be then spread on social media.
Barack Obama has over 7 million followers, of course. That seems reasonable. But I think it seems to me that one of the powers of Twitter in particular, we'll get to Facebook in a second and others, but Twitter in particular is that 140 character limit. If I'm Prime Minister Harper, I don't want to read your novel, right? I don't want to read your treatise because it bores me and tires me out. But if you send me a 3-liner that says you've blown it on this issue, ooh, that hits me.
Exactly, and it's the brevity and how you frame it, but also it presents an amazing opportunity and it has amazing potential to build new policy discussions. When politicians, elected politicians, and this is where we need to separate the politics from the policy.
Yes.
When elected officials and government agencies do realize that people can frame their needs, their policy needs, whatever they need the government to do for them in brief 140 character snippets, that's when they can seize the opportunity and then become useful to their citizens because they're there because they were elected.
I just had a crazy idea listening to you. What if I started a Facebook page? By the way, do all Facebook pages go facebook.com/ and then the subject?
You need 25. You used to need 100 people to like your page.
Oh, okay.
But not anymore.
Okay. So what if I started a Facebook page called Healthcare Horrors?
Yeah.
Or Healthcare Stories?
Yes.
It's possible that might go viral. It's possible that suddenly everybody would be sending in stories about my aunt was left in the hallway at Royal Columbian or Peace Arch or whatever, or my Uncle Harry had problems dealing with this, and so on, isn't it?
It is, and the real key issue is that social media is really young. I mean, we've started to see the power in the last, 5 to maybe 6 years at the very most, and as such, social media has evolved, but law and policy have not evolved at the same pace. So what happens is that the government agencies at the federal, provincial, and local levels will be in a better position and stronger position if they're able to seize that ability, if they respond to that Facebook page by being propositive, by giving alternatives, by listening to their citizens and then giving an alternative. It's completely useless to just listen. Most of the social media specialists will tell you, you need to listen first. But what I argue is that you not only need to listen to what your constituents are saying, but you need to act when the constituents are actually saying something that is relevant to the policy discussion. So it's irrelevant for me to, be reading all the Facebook horrors, the health horrors, if there's nothing I'm doing. But however, if I respond and I say, I don't know, if I'm from the Ministry of Health and I say, well, we are making these considerations for our next budget expansion or budget cuts, but we are not planning not to cut on, I don't know, areas of seniors and so on, that's when they have an opportunity. And in public policy theory, what we say is that there is a policy window opening. But most of the politicians and political parties I see are failing to see that policy window open. They seem to just have the politics window open.
And oddly, more and more people in business see social media as essential. If I'm driving my car, Raul, and there's a transit bus in front of me, as there often is, I can be looking at an ad for plumbing, toilets, a flea powder for my dog, for the most absurd things, and they all say, follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And they all have the F and the T symbol, the icon, right there. And the product could be vegetables.
It could.
Well, it could be anything. Why? Why does everybody feel that it is now you can't open a shoe store without a T and an F?
Because I think, and there's a lot more than the F and the T. I think the reason why is because there are great opportunities for businesses to communicate with customers. Whereas before, you had to call your customer service representative. Now you can send them a tweet and say, I'm going for dinner to the global group, and I want to know if there is a space for a table of 10. And they will send a tweet within 10 seconds.
In 10 seconds. You know, it's very interesting that you said there's a lot more than just the T and the F, because now anywhere, if there's a window, let's say on YouTube, this show will be on YouTube later tonight, there's a click that says share. If you click share, it will show you about 10 different sites, and then there's a little note that at the bottom that says 323 more.
Yes.
So there's Dig, and I can't even list them. You could probably list about a dozen quickly. But there are all these other social media sites. So what is a person to do? If you're a politician or a policymaker or you sell widgets, how are you supposed to deal with all that? You have to be selective, I guess.
Absolutely, you need to be selective. And I've been studying this for a while. I've been working on a project with a local agency, Invoke, and we are working with the city of Surrey precisely on bringing them up to speed. And the take-up has been amazing. Mayor Diane Watt.
Yeah, she is amazing.
She's amazing, and she's extremely innovative. And her councillors are on the ball. Like they got Twitter and Facebook fast.
Really?
And what we said is you need to just focus on the first things that will be of use to you as a policymaker. Yes. Regardless of what the political use can be, they realize the potential to communicate with their constituency. And that's what makes it beautiful. And you can follow Mayor Watts, she's amazing. Then the councillors, Councillor Rossotti, Councillor Hunt, and so on, they see that this is an opportunity for them to engage with the people that they serve. And the minute public policymakers realize that they have that opportunity and they seize it, that's the minute we will see social media and public policy have a viral growth, definitely.
Yeah, it's very interesting. We'll talk about this. When we take a little break, we come back. It seems to me that people on the street, people like you and me, are much hipper than the policymakers about social media already. Diane Watts, who's an unusual politician, and many of us believe she's one of the best we've ever seen, she may be way ahead of the curve, but most of them don't quite get it. We'll take a little breather here and remind you that davidberger.com, speaking of social media, is where you can I was going to say where you can TNF us, where you can Twitter us and Facebook us, and also send us emails and so on. We're going to continue in a moment with Dr. Raul Pacheco-Vega, continuing about the effect of social media on public policy. But first, we want to say thanks to these several very good people who enable us to bring you this program on Shaw Community TV, Cable 4. KCM Wealth Management. Vancouver lawyers Dumel and Boscovich. The Vancouver Courier newspaper. David and Mark Goodman. Imagine adding to the pool of human organ donors. That's exactly what happened just the other day here in town because a young gal was dying way too early, and suddenly they put together a campaign called Live Life, and they put it on Facebook, and the number of organ donors just totally spiked because of that Facebook application. Here's, a very violent and not very happy story, but it shows again the social policy, public policy power of social media. Protesters march on Israeli borders. 13 killed after Palestinian Facebook campaign to storm the frontiers. So a Facebook campaign went out to Palestinians, which said blah, 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 in that tragic, endless conflict, and suddenly a whole bunch of people came out and stormed a border with dire results. Mitch Joel, writing in the business section of The Sun just a couple days ago, Dr. Raul Pacheco-Vega is our guest, writes about, he says, 6 pixels of separation. The Twitter effect, social media applications allure lies in its simplicity. Twitter is an agnostic publishing platform because it allows anyone for free to publish a thought in 140 characters or less. He says Twitter isn't a news organization, it's a distribution channel. Explain that.
And this is an interesting phenomenon because I see Twitter, and actually I see social media not as a broadcasting distribution method. I see it as a conversational method.
Yes.
I see it as a way for you and me to engage in these bilateral, bidirectional conversations where we can learn from each other. That's what Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, anything in the social media sphere is for. It's for conversation. Far beyond are the years from when we were in websites, just reading website, go to my website. It's not go to my website. Now it's let's talk about the issues that are relevant to you. And you mentioned the campaign Give Life. And that's a campaign, the Facebook campaign. It's a fantastic campaign that is dedicated to fundraise for the BC BC transplant and the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. And what happens is that you find that element that galvanizes people and that people can relate to. And people relate to the story of a beautiful young lady who died way before her years.
Yes.
And we all can relate because we all have lost someone. We all have had someone affected by cancer. I was just telling you the story about my friend Derek A. Miller.
Well, that story, which was in the print press, certainly was there, but it was all over the social media. I know that at your site at Hummingbird 604, that you wrote about it. I mean, practically everybody was carrying on about it. I mean, it must have had a lot of friends and followers.
There's over 12 million people who have read that last blog post of Derek Miller. 12 million.
Really?
Yes. 12 million unique hits, which is 12 million people who have actually related to that message of, the world is a wondrous place. And it's a beautiful message of non-regret because he lived his life to the fullest and he was able to communicate that way.
Non-regret. Where's Edith Piaf when we need her? Yes. Can we agree, Raul, that a large percentage of social media is dispensable drivel? I mean, there's an awful lot of, I'm buying a Pepsi now and I just bought new shoes or whatever. There's an awful lot of this sort of teenage nonsense that just, maybe it's fun for people, but it's not got much to do with anything. Can we agree on that?
Sure.
And you have to find the stuff that's really about real ideas and issues.
Yes, and there's a number of tools. There's automated tools. I can tell you that I categorize my Twitter by lists, and I have the lists of policymakers, politicians, news, and I'm able to compartmentalize and control the flow of information.
That's funny because I know that title on the Twitter page, lists. and I've never done anything with it.
Yes.
Is that what it is?
That's what
you see,
it
I'm
is.
so dopey.
That is what
I'm just such a novice at this.
But it's a beautiful thing, because if you're a politician, and more than a politician, let's forget about social media in politics, which it's its own different range. If you're a policymaker, if you're interested in listening to the needs of citizens, you can listen to the needs of specific influentials who can be sharing information. And my academic identity is one, but as Hummingbird 604, I see myself as someone who curates information for people and who connects people. So in my capacity as, a social media, online semi-celebrity, that's what I do.
What you are. It's funny. And hummingbird is a great image for you. You selected a perfect image for yourself, because the hummingbird darts from flower to flower and sticks his nose in each flower, and that's you're sort of a connecting guy, aren't you?
I love connecting, and I've loved connecting. I used Hummingbird 604 even to benefit my own university and my own students, because I have great connections with environmental organizations, politicians, policymakers, and I can connect my students with examples of the real life. Metro Vancouver, the City of Vancouver, and TransLink, all three came to my public policy class because I am Hummingbird 604, I invited them.
This is spooky. I was about to ask you something about TransLink. I can't believe you just said that, because I was going to make up a theoretical. I was thinking, what if TransLink came to you and wanted to know what people really think about paying for their tickets? It's an issue that drives me crazy, because I've always thought we did this wrong, and I'm talking about the SkyTrain. Yeah. We should have had pay turnstiles from the beginning. But now they say it's too expensive. Now they're going to do it, but blah, blah, blah. So what if they came to you? What would you tell them?
Well, I actually have very good relationships with TransLink and with their online department. Erin McConnell is one of my best friends. Yes. And what I've told TransLink from a public policy analyst and a social media specialist is, you need to go to influential people and share your message, but also you need to listen even to negative feedback. And you should see, TransLink has very well monitored their mentions column, and they listen, and they really listen. And sometimes all you need to do is vent. Sometimes I'm running for the 99B line, which is the one that takes me from my house to UBC. Yeah. And I complain because I'm in a Sardin. And
when I complain because what?
I'm in a Sardin. I'm in these big buses, and we are stuck like sardines.
Oh, like sardines, okay,
And I complain on Twitter, and they respond and say, we are very sorry that this happens. We are working on bringing more buses. Even if they don't bring them, they're listening to me as a citizen, as a normal citizen. And that's the first step of building trust between a government agency and the citizen, by proving that you're actually listening.
We only have a few more minutes left, Dr. Raul. Look, all of these things are changing geometrically as we speak. The microchip just gets revolutionized every 4 seconds, and I was just showing someone my 8 gigabyte little flash drive that's part of my keychain, and explaining to him that a year or two from now, it won't be a microchip, it'll be a liquid. And it'll have 20 gigabytes. It'll be a liquid drop, and it'll have 20 gigabytes. What do you see coming up in the next few months or year? What do you think you can safely predict about this social media and how it'll start to be used?
I think the location-based services are extremely important.
Like what? What does that mean?
Like Foursquare. Foursquare is a little application that says, I'm here. Okay. And basically I could have Foursquared, I'm at the Shaw Towers, right? I think it will be good to deliver information from normal citizens to government agencies. And we are exploring ways to do that. We are also looking at ways to integrate YouTube, continuous monitoring of, and enforcement. Legal enforcement can be also monitored on Twitter. You could tweet pick someone basically, breaking the law, and you could upload it onto Twitter and say, hey, VPD, someone is trying to break into this house. So there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of really good potential.
That's wild. And of course, you are going to put on Hummingbird and on all your social media that the David Berner Show is fabulous and you love it. And you can't stop watching it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so in your experience so far, what has been the biggest single impact in terms of public policy?
I think social media's biggest impact is, again, democratizing and enabling government agencies to listen, to really listen. Now that they see the potential implications of social movements that are organized on social media, now they try to seize the opportunity. I think the conversation, building the beginnings of a conversation, of a policy conversation, that's the biggest
I don't know how much social media were involved at all in the uprisings in the Arab countries in North Africa. I have no idea, but at least 8 countries experienced almost parallel, identical sort of riots in the streets. Were social media involved?
That has been debated, but what social media has enabled us was to be witnesses, and by just being witnesses, that's a first step.
Yeah, and you raised a good one, and we got to get out of here. But police can't pull a Rodney King any longer. You can't have police in a democratic country beating somebody up because there's somebody with a cell phone, and it's going to go viral.
Exactly.
Raul,
thank you so much.
Wonderful stuff. Okay, folks, that's it for today. I want to remind you that next week we're going to bring you a repeat episode of a marvelous conversation with a brilliant and affable guy, Dr. Max Sinader of the Brain Research Center at UBC. You just have to watch it. Trust me, it's a marvelous conversation. He's great. And then the week after, we're going on the road. We're going to Victoria to interview someone I've been chasing from the very beginning, and that's Mary Ellen Turpel-Lafond, the BC representative for children and youth. And we'll tape that in Victoria. You'll see it here in its usual form. So again, davidberner.com is the place to go to send us email, check out our social media. And as always, we thank you for being here on Shaw Community TV Cable 4.